guys. So today we're going to talk about roots and more specifically square roots. I think I'm going to do cube roots in another lesson. So, so let's talk about square roots. Before we talk about actual square roots, though, I want to talk about perfect square numbers, or what we call perfect squares, but they're actually numbers. So if I can understand what these mean, then I can understand what a square root is. Okay, so a perfect square number is a number that makes up a square. So if I have a square here, right, so I have this square, a perfect square number is a number that we talked about. We talked about those a little bit earlier when we talked about exponents. So 1 is a perfect square, and then the next perfect square is 4, and the next perfect square is 9, and the next perfect square after that is 16. So those are all in order, and where these numbers come from is they actually make a square because the sides are the same. So if I have a 1, if 1 is a perfect square here, that means it was 1 times 1, or 1 squared. Okay. For 4, right? So for 4, if I look over here at my square, oops, 1 squared. Okay. If I look at 4, okay, that means it's because it was 2 times 2, right? So this is 2 squared. If I say that the square is 9, if I look back over here at the square, that's because it was 3 times 3, right? If I look at 16, that's because it was 4 times 4, or 4 squared. So what we're looking for when we talk about a perfect square number is, oops, that should be a 1 times 1, are numbers or products that come from two of the exact same factors. And that's why these are called squareds, because they make up a square, right? So the next one down that comes next would be whatever 5 squared is, or 5 times 5 is 25, right? 6 times 6 is 6 squared. That's 36. And we can keep on going. This pattern keeps on going forever. So perfect square numbers are these numbers here that are made up of multiplying integers together by themselves. So they have the same two factors. Okay, so now when I want to take the square root of something, we're going to think about if we want to square root something, okay, we're going to use a symbol called the radical symbol. Here's the main thing we need to take away from square rooting, because a lot of students will say this. This is not division. Do not think that square roots is dividing. It is a totally separate operation, a different thing altogether. It is not division, okay? It has its own symbol. It's this radical symbol, okay? So we want to ask ourselves, if I take the square root of, say, 4, what number multiplied by itself, what number multiplied by itself gives me 4, right? And that's when we go over here and we think about our perfect square numbers. Here's 4. The number that multiplies by itself is 2. So the answer here is 2. All right. Another way we can write that is, let me pick up this, let's do a different color. Let's pick up purple. So let's say I want to find the square root of 16. Well, I would say that's 4 because 4 times 4, which is 4 squared, is equal to 16. So I can write it like show my work that way. All right, so what we're looking for is if we're taking the square root of a perfect square number, we get these bases down this column right here. We get these bases right here as our answers. Okay, now what we have to be careful of, though, we have to be very careful of, is there another way to get 16? So when I look at this, well, we know that something times itself is going to equal 16. Well, we know 4 times 4 equals 16, and that's how we got 4. But is there another way to get 16? By multiplying the same two factors together. And the answer is yes. It isn't just 4 times 4, but if we remember our rules for multiplying integers, it's also -4 times -4 gives us 16. So -4 could also be an answer. So how do we know which answer we want to get? Like, how do we know which one we're supposed to put? Well, this is how you'll know. So let's say we're going to do an official example, our first official example. Let's say I have the square root of 64. So remember, we're thinking about what number multiplied by itself gives me, well, in this case, 64. Well, I know 8 times 8 is 64. If there's nothing in front, it means it's positive. It's called the principal root. So we're going to just leave it the positive. So nothing out front, nothing out front. We just leave it positive. Okay. If I want the negative answer, I'm going to put a negative sign on the outside of the radical symbol. So this negative sign is on the outside. The negative square root of 64 is going to be -8. And if I want both answers, this is a newer symbol. This symbol here means plus minus or positive negative. It actually means that there are two answers here. Okay, let's see if I have enough room. So when I write this answer down, I'm going to have positive -8, and that's how we would say it, positive -8. But what we need to realize that this one gives us two answers, even though it only looks like one. There's a positive 8 and there's a -8. So we wrote them down at the same time. So this one's a very special case. Okay, but sometimes you'll see that symbol, and that's what that symbol means. All right, so that's what we have here. So that's how we find square roots. So we're looking for a number multiplied by itself. It'll give me the number inside the radical symbol. All right, so some other things can happen. Let's say we have, now you got to trust Miss Perry, right? Trust Miss Perry, trust her. So if I have, let's say that's supposed to be a 2. I have a positive negative square root of 9/25. Don't freak out because you're seeing a fraction. Don't think of it as the fraction 9/25. Think of it as I got to take the square root of some different parts, and I'm going to split this up into different parts. So it's still going to be plus minus, but I'm going to do the top, which is just the square root of 9, over the bottom, which is the square root of 25. And these two here are perfect square numbers. They fit in this. See where there's 9, there's 25. They fit in here. So the square root, so we do the plus minus still, because if they put that symbol there, we need to put it. But the square root of 9 is just 3, and the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 3 is 9. And that's our final answer. Okay, so there's no need to overthink it. There's no need to to make it any harder, a fraction harder than it needs to be. That's all there is to it. Okay. All right. You guys try this one. All right. Oh, so I keep on going to that color. Let's go with this one. All right. I want you guys to find the square root of 25 over 81. So what's the square root of 25 over 81? Pause and then come back and check your answer. All right. So if I'm going to split this up, it's going to be the square root of 25 over the square root of 81. Well, the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. And the square root of 81 is 9, because 9 times 9 is 81. And that's our answer. It's just 5/9. That's it. All right, so that's a little bit of it. You might let's do one more example here. Oops, what number am I on? I think I'm on, example 3. Okay, so example 3 is sometimes we can use, we're going to use these to solve equations. So let's say I've got x to the second power equal to 36, okay? And we want to solve for x. We want to know what x can be. Well, what we're really thinking about here is it's x times x is equal to 36. So what number times itself equals 36? That's what we're looking for. Okay? Well, all we need to do is square root both sides because it's an equation. Whatever you do to one side, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this becomes x is equal to, and this is 6 times 6. So x is 6, but don't forget, it could also be -6 times -6. So if I want all the solutions, if I want all the possible answers, then this is going to be, oops, that was really big. This is going to be positive -6, and that would be our answer. Okay, so I'm going to give you one to try on your own. So let's say I have m squared equal to 100, and I want to solve for x. Okay, solve for x. That means I want all the possibilities of x that will fit in this equation. Okay, try it and then come back. All right, let's see how you did. If I'm going to square root both sides, if that's what we want to call it, then m is going to equal, well, I'm looking for, solve for x. This should have been m, sorry. M times m has to equal 100. So it could be a positive or a negative 10, and that's the answer. And that's how you do square roots. So we're really, really saying what number multiplied by itself gives you, in this case it was 4, but whatever that number is inside the radical symbol. All right, I hope that helps. So the question that I hope you guys can answer right now, all right, is our summary question. So here's the question. How can you find square roots without a calculator? Okay, so how can you find square roots without a calculator? Hopefully you can answer that question. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.